We gotta start with Foghorn Leghorn over here. Chief Deputy U.S. Marshal Harry Gifford's Stetson seems like it grows a size every time he shows up at team headquarters, but in episode 4 of Marshals, The Gathering Storm, it's no closer to containing his bullshit. Gifford has seized on a complaint against Kayce Dutton by Randall Clegg as a way to prosecute Kayce's entire family. Clegg, whose own fam just hurt innocent people at a peaceful protest. Clegg, whose sons fired on federal agents and tried to blow them up with IEDs. The only thing more laughable than Gifford's boner to bust Kayce over some Kirkland brand grudge against his late father is how badly Marshals wants to rent pieces of used drama from Yellowstone's past. Just like last week, this episode of Marshals goes on a wayward tangent into ancient Sheridan-Overse history, bringing up Season 2 of Yellowstone, and John and Kayce Dutton's battle with a developer who hired a backwoods militia to kidnap Tate Dutton. Marshals is the first procedural in Yellowstone's universe. And for 3 episodes, it has evaded every procedural trap that makes many of them feel underwhelming when the formula is the same. The conflict here is less about the case and more about Kayce's position on the team. Marshal Guilford has made it clear that Kayce is a ticking time bomb, and when he explodes, he'll take down everyone with him. His return reinforces this thesis as he goes after Kayce hard, so much so that it feels like he is being irrational. On the one hand, one can see where he's coming from because the Dutton family history speaks for itself: abuse of office, abuse of power, and several other questionable things that have happened over the past several years. Guilford speaks to the rational part of me that doesn't regard Kayce as the perfect protagonist. Sure, I like the guy, but he's not exactly Ted Lasso. He has lacked direction his entire life, picking up causes here and there that make him feel fulfilled for a little while before he inevitably realizes he was being manipulated. Guilford is right to be skeptical, but unfortunately, he's too little too late. The members are forced to re-evaluate some of Kayce's actions and history as they seek to understand what Guilford is seeing. The problem with this arc is that it is not compelling because everyone flip-flops before eventually footage comes out of nowhere to prove that Kayce is not a bad guy. It strains credulity that, at one moment, they think Kayce could be a chronic rule-breaker, and the next, they're standing up for him when they barely know the man. Given what he's shown them, there is little incentive for them to give him that much benefit of the doubt. The whiplash of their changing convictions makes the episode's pacing feel dizzying. Even if they were going to arrive at that decision eventually, it needed breathing room. Their struggle with Kayce's morality should have played out over the next several episodes, not been resolved within one. The problem now is that even if they revisit this arc with someone like Guilford or Andrea, it'll feel redundant. Grateful to the U.S. Marshals for saving her father's life, Dolly Weaver, guest star Ellen Jameson, offered to buy the team a round of drinks at the end of the hour, appearing especially thankful to Kayce for his heroic efforts. Kayce naively chalked her kindness up to genuine gratitude, but Andrea insisted, "I know what grateful looks like, and that is not how she's eyeing you. Saddle up, cowboy." Sure enough, Dolly approached a sullen-looking Kayce, noting that his skills apparently don't include being the life of the party. She's new to the area, but she said Montana feels less scary knowing that Kayce and the other marshals are around. She even requested a private crash course on all things Big Sky, to which a flattered Kayce replied, "Maybe." As far as TV meet cuties go, this was a fairly innocent interaction, but there's a lot that needs to be considered here. Kayce's wife Monica, a beloved Yellowstone character, died only shortly before the series premiere of Marshals. Kayce's answer to Dolly was far from a firm yes, but we're a little surprised that the show would even consider having Kayce move on so quickly. Now for weeks into Yellowstone's first spin-off, and with the series now officially renewed for another season, it seems like the show is wrapping up its setup phase and settling into its new identity. That's precisely what we got in The Gathering Storm, as dueling plotlines gave several members of the team a chance to develop in more rounded ways. Whether or not the characters will choose to follow through on them all remains to be seen. Here's what you missed on this week's episode. The primary plot of this week was divided among 2 cases. On one side, Harry, the head of the Marshal's office, tasks most of the team with an investigation into one of their own, Kayce, of course. It seems that Clegg, the potential season big bad who was introduced last week, has filed a complaint with the Department of Justice saying that his son was actually unarmed when Kayce shot him in episode 3. As such, Kayce is benched, This will last approximately 30 seconds, while Andrea leads Belle and Miles in their own investigation of the shooting to try and get out in front of the DOJ inquiry. The team feels openly conflicted about this, with Belle and Miles clearly on Kayce's side, while Andrea is in the awkward position of having to choose her loyalties. Harry wants her to dig up some reason to kick Kayce off of the team before the DOJ uncovers any Dutton family skeletons, not quite going so far as telling her to manufacture evidence, but implying heavily that her ability to get rid of Kayce could result in her much-hoped-for transfer back to her old team in DC. There's, frankly, a lot of run-around in this plotline as the team tries variously to track down any motive Kayce would have to kill Clegg's son. Clegg threatens to go to the press, an old Yellowstone plotline involving Tate's kidnapping is discussed, and Harry attempts to railroad Kayce on some very thin evidence, all of which I'm just going to hand-wave away for the moment as it ends up feeling like much ado about nothing. In the end, when the team manages to turn up some trail cameras that recorded a video proving that Kayce was in the right all along, convenient. Kayce's badge is saved. The team all feel bad for investigating him, even though it was literally their jobs. Harry is pissed off at Andrea, but Andrea feels the same way and warns him never to manipulate her like that again. On the other side of this week's plot are Kayce and Cal, who, truly 30 seconds after Harry tells Kayce he can't work cases, head out on a search and rescue operation with the Rangers. A rich local landowner and his helicopter pilot have disappeared amidst high winds and dangerous weather. The guys head out on horseback to search part of the grid, in case you were worried that the helicopter might have crashed in any other sector, don't, and also for some good old manly bonding time amidst discussions about Kayce's issues with rich guys who buy lots of ranch land and acting like king of the valley, daddy issues, whether Kayce killing Clegg's son was justified, and another lecture about Kayce not making friends with the team. They manage to get held at gunpoint by a scruffy man who's living off the grid in the middle of the woods. Scruffy man is no match for Kayce, naturally, but the guys don't have time to deal with him because they can see the smoke from where the helicopter crashed, so they tell him to go to the ranger station and turn himself in, likely. At the crash site, they find the rich rancher, Tom Weaver, injured, and his pilot near death. The weather is getting worse, so they're going to have to attempt to get both parties back to the ranger station by horseback, only no, actually, they won't because, to quote my notes, oh, dip. A bear. Despite how dramatic that seems, the bear is scared off in short order, though not before jostling the helicopter enough to exacerbate the pilot's injuries, resulting in the death. Kayce blames Weaver for having them out surveying land in the weather, but Weaver clearly feels guilty and they have a long talk about living in their father's shadows, so Kayce forgives him, daddy issues again. Calvin and Miles manage to get Weaver out safely, though not before Scruffy Man returns, shocking, to steal their supplies and try to shoot them. Kayce goes to visit Weaver in the hospital afterwards, where he provides him with some handy ranching information. Weaver insists on lending him some ranch hands as repayment for saving his life, and Weaver's beautiful blonde daughter, Dolly, visibly contemplates NSFW ways she could also show her gratitude, having apparently taken Cal's nagging about. Hanging out with the team to heart, Kayce joins them all at the bar, with Dolly. As Andrea says, I know what grateful looks like, and that's not how she's eyeing you. Saddle up, cowboy. In the final moments of the episode, Dolly corners Kayce up, gently teasing him about being introverted, and tries to cajole him into showing her what Montana has to offer. Kayce says, maybe. For the second week in a row, there's no Tate in the episode. There are a few fun character details in this episode that don't quite come to anything, but might be seeds for the future, including, Andrea went to law school, though she didn't graduate, Belle plays golf, and gambles on it, Miles ghosted a woman who also goes to their bar. Okay, not so much for Miles this episode. Easily the most interesting side tidbit of the episode came toward the end when Calvin reveals that Maddie, the bartender he's seemingly been trying to win over all season, is, in fact, his daughter. He took the placement on the team to be closer to her, but now she doesn't want anything to do with him because, well, he was a crappy father for 20 years. Fair enough. I realize this is entirely beside the point of the series, but the show keeps bringing it up and forcing me to think about it. Kayce says he has 300 pairs, that's 300 cows with calves, for those who weren't raised in cattle country. Weaver says he's going to lend Kayce some ranch hands to deal with said cattle. Kayce has previously said that Rip also got his some ranch hands. So where the heck are these ranch hands? Why are they never around? Why is this show forcing me to think about animal husbandry when it clearly just wants to run around the woods and shoot guns?